Never reasonable to restrict constitutional freedoms in the name of fighting terrorism?
In our opinion, no.
And now the plain truth. As you've seen on our show, the government at times tells you lies. The deception is historic and continuous. The government needs to be exposed because it cannot be trusted to expose itself. We live in exciting and fearful times. Most of you today are not afraid of big crime or big business or big labor. Rather, most of us are most afraid of big government.
All right, folks, there is a lot going on right now. Decisions being made that are unprecedented and will have an overreaching impact on what it means to live in the United States of America.
Who could want a government that punishes people for speech, that lets its own agents write their own search warrants, that fights wars just to keep the military-industrial complex busy, that debases all you own by printing worthless money and putting it into the stream of commerce, that gives away more than half the tax dollars it collects, and that, despite express provisions in the Constitution to the contrary, permits the president to lock up whoever he wants and to throw away the key.
The president saying he can secretly kill Americans and have bags put over our head and have us thrown into black vans to disappear forever. Or look at the TSA and the airports groping people. Look at the drones in our skies. Look at Army checkpoints now, the end of posse comitatus. We see the president signing legislation to charge people with felonies if they protest at national security events. You know, people ask, is this martial law? Yes, we've been under a soft form of martial law with secret arrest, warrantless spying, protesters getting beaten up, all of these type of things going on for a long, long time. Now they're telling us torture is good, secret arrest of citizens is good, the government taking over infrastructure is good. They don't deny all this stuff that we warn people about forever being real now.
Ron Wyden and Mark Udall of Colorado, two Democratic senators, came out today and said, hey, you know what? We know things you don't because we're on an intelligence committee, and Americans would be, quote, stunned to find out how the American government is applying the Patriot Act.
Documents just released indicate police departments across the country do track cell phones without bothering to get any permission from a court.
After reviewing 5,500 pages of records, the ACLU says police agencies, large and small, often obtain cell phone data without court permission.
If the government wants it, it needs a search warrant. If it gets it without a search warrant, it has committed a crime. A crime.
Obtaining a warrant can slow down that process.
Oh, and it's going to slow the process down if we have to ask for have to ask a judge, can we search authorized cell phone records to find a missing person? Call me.
A cell phone warrant, it usually took me about 15 minutes. Once you've written one, you've written all of them.
You know, warrants are in our Constitution. You need to get a warrant before you search or seize anything. But apparently the Constitution no longer applies.
The ACLU saying in the report this has become big business for service providers.
The practice is so common that cell phone companies have manuals for police.
If my cell phone company is going to give up my information, I think they need to send me a note in the mail, say, we gave your information to a third party, because they always tell you, we're not going to give your information to a third party.
But they also found training manuals, like one from the Iowa City Police Department that says, in quotes, do not mention to the public or the media the use of cell phone technology or equipment used to locate the target subject. The manual also advises not to put this stuff into the police reports. So, doesn't that make you feel safe? Law enforcement is doing something that they know would probably cause public outrage and which they know raises legal questions. So their solution is not to stop doing it. No, of course not. Their solution is just to hide it from you.
Unless they suspect me of a crime, the police do not need to follow me. That's why they need probable cause. And people say, what do you have to hide? I don't have anything to hide, but the police don't need to follow me if they have no reason to think that I'm in Al-Qaeda. And by the way, I'm not in Al-Qaeda.
You know, it's just another sign of our ever-expanding surveillance state. One that's being sold to the people as a buffer against terrorism. But the truth is, it's being used by law enforcement all the time to track people that have nothing to do with a terrorism-related investigation.
It started with the FBI, and the government said, oh, we have to let the FBI do it because they're tracking terrorists. Now, it's no longer terrorists, it's every case, any conceivable case, and it's no longer terrorists, and it's no longer just the FBI, it's all the local police as well. So, there you have it. That's how we destroy our Constitution right in front of our eyes.
The ACLU's most recent info sheet says that 1.7 billion, with a B, emails, phone calls, and text messages are being intercepted and stored by the U.S. government.
Now, the CIA, or the Central Intelligence Agency, prides itself on being the best spying machine in the world. But how much are new technologies that, we're all growing to love, growing to depend on, making the job easier for them? Be it social networking, a variety of gadgets that we all use that are now connected to the internet, like your PlayStation, your smartphone, your GPS. Soon enough, even more devices inside your home.
And then they had the Secretary of Defense, they had the CIA director in there, Petraeus, saying, oh, we're working with industry to have bugs and tracker systems built into all appliances. Your dishwasher is going to be listening to you. Watch what you say. We don't need warrants anymore.
It's a really scary world of scary possibilities out there, and Congress is ready to counter it, with over 50 cybersecurity bills introduced just in this congressional session. But is this threat being overblown? Are we conflating different threats onto one gigantic apocalyptic scenario just to line the pockets of defense contractors and create a massive cybersecurity complex? So far, nobody in Congress has actually provided evidence that cybersecurity legislation of this nature really is needed.
There are a lot of folks who stand to benefit from comprehensive cybersecurity legislation, especially if that legislation comes attached with big spending.
Well, if you thought that SOPA and PIPA were bad, just wait until you hear about cybersecurity legislation working its way through Congress. It's called CISPA, or the Cyber Intelligence Sharing and Protect Act, also known as HR 3523. Here, Microsoft, Facebook, Tech America, they're on board. How come?
Well, it tells the internet companies, look, our bad. We didn't mean to go after you guys, okay? You're giant corporations as well. We're totally happy with you guys. What we want to do is go after anyone that dares to cross the government, and we know you guys would never make that mistake. Now, you might think, come on, are they really going to do that? Hell, yes, they're going to do that. Let me give you a perfect example, WikiLeaks. If they have a law like this, they could just simply come in and tell the ISP provider, look at this law that we have, it's over, shut down WikiLeaks. But also, did you notice they snuck in private entity? So if you're a threat to a private entity, they might also shut you down.
And under the veil of doing things for cybersecurity purposes, they would allow companies to collect and monitor private communications and then share them with the government or anybody else. A company like Google, Facebook, Twitter, or AT&T could intercept your emails and text messages, send copies to one another and to the government, and modify those communications or prevent them from reaching their destination if it fits into their plan to stop cybersecurity threats.
So what it does is it essentially carves out a cybersecurity exception to all of our privacy laws.
So in the end, if they pass this, instead of passing PIPA or SOPA, well, they might have the same effect in terms of shutting down our sites, and they also have the second effect of merging business and state even further together. I'm afraid that I'm a little pessimistic on this one. I said that we could win on SOPA. I accurately called that one. Why? Because we had huge corporations on our side. Facebook, Google, etc. Now we're on our own. And without those guys backing us up, good luck to us.
Starting Thursday, July 12th, ISPs, Internet Service Providers, will be spying not just on your bandwidth, right? But specifically on what you are downloading. You are giving them an unfettered, unchecked right to cut off your service based upon the claims of copyright holders who have been shown time and time and time again to make false claims. And there's no recourse for you.
Well, I think that online piracy is a red herring. These transnational content companies make more money than ever. Look at how much money is made from legitimate music downloads via iTunes. They're making a fortune, literally, billions of dollars every year in legal download revenue. And they're saying that they need to crack down on pirates, but really they want to crack down on internet communication itself.
Talking Points member reports that Facebook has started to ask certain users to upload photos of their government-issued ID cards. That includes passports, driver's licenses, work or military IDs will also do.
And these documents indicate that the Department of Homeland Security has been spying on us on Facebook, and they're looking for specific words. And some of the words that they're looking for in our profiles includes marijuana, right? So I'll give you an example of some of the, I guess, words that set the alarms for the Department of Homeland Security. Drill, all right, drill, exercise, Airport.
Exercise, okay. Well, why don't you just go ahead and waste all of our time and our money going after that?
Airport, drug, narcotics, cocaine, and marijuana.
But once you create these things, they grow out of control.
They do.
And Big Brother just keeps on rolling on.
I mean, we live in a police state at this point, with the police enforcement spying on innocent people without absolutely no probable cause. This is just another example of that.
Not only is your every move on Facebook now being posted for your friends to see, but Facebook might still be watching even after you log out.
Sure. So over the last few decades, we've increasingly come to entrust third parties with our private data. All of these companies have been trusted by us, and they're collecting data about us in many cases and storing it, in the cloud or in some data center. And once the data leaves our possession, it's really up for grabs for the government.
A new AP investigation has revealed that the NYPD was spying on activists as far away as New Orleans. Now, if the NYPD is traveling down to New Orleans to monitor a protest and tracking Muslims all over the Northeast, then one can only imagine how they're reacting to the Occupy movement.
It's being called intelligent CCTV, surveillance cameras that can pick out suspicious behavior in a crowd and stop terrorists before they strike. Researchers in Reading are leading the world in developing the new technology.
Researchers at Reading University think they've got the technology to spot the terrorists before they strike.
First, there were eyes on the street, and now there are eyes in the skies. The Director of National Intelligence has given the go-ahead for the nation's spy satellites to be used regularly by U.S. civilian agencies and law enforcement.
Now the Department of Homeland Security wants to monitor anybody who's leaving the United Kingdom, not just Americans. Now, those who are traveling to Mexico are also going to be sharing personal details, especially if they're flying to Mexico City or to Cancun. And if any travelers are pondering a vacation in Cuba or the Caribbean, be prepared to give over your info too. This is an excuse to collect everybody's information about the TSA. Turns out they're not just doing these things in airports anymore. They're now doing them at ferries. They're doing them at bus stations, on subways. So are you ready to just start having TSA everywhere that you go?
Yeah. Oh, the part I found most interesting is that they've been working with ICE. So, you're going to get your papers inspected while you're being fondled.
We have a $2 billion data center being built out in the Utah desert to spy on American citizens.
It's NSA's newest and biggest surveillance program. It's called Total Information Awareness. The program targets all kinds of electronic information from around the world. So this includes emails, tweets, texts, phone conversations, you name it, from U.S. citizens. It's being called the biggest spy machine ever.
It's just going to get bigger. They're just going to use these resources in new ways.
To be specific, they show that the FBI taught its agents that they could sometimes, quote, bend or suspend the law in their hunt for terrorists and criminals.
It outlaws certain forms of peaceful protest. If you happen to be within close proximity to high-ranking elected officials who are receiving Secret Service protection, that can be considered a felony. So if you can't protest in your own nation's capital, what kind of constitutional republic have we become?
The UK is going to start testing these lasers that temporarily blind individuals, especially if they're participating in protests or riots.
Yeah, in other words, if people start speaking up against the government, we're going to temporarily blind them.
When you don't have the right to protest, you don't have much left.
Just more proof that your freedom of speech really ain't all that free. In fact, it just might land you on a government list.
It gives the military the power to indefinitely detain American citizens suspected, just suspected, not convicted, of some sort of involvement or affiliation with terrorism.
It basically means the president, the administration can just say, you're a terrorism suspect, the military takes you away, and we may never hear from you again.
Obama had said he didn't want to sign it. Then it turned out he demanded that the provision for secret arrest of citizens and secret killing and torture be added.
Is that this means that the military, not our civilian justice system, is going to be in charge.